Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, BIM-Based Costing, Understand Your Project Costs. This webinar is brought to you by Applied Software. My name is Caitlin Dunn, and I'm pleased to be your moderator today. All right, here we go with the intro video. Hi, and welcome to this Applied Software webinar. We're glad you could join us today. Get more out of the webinar by clicking on the icons at the bottom of your screen. You can resize these. This button leads to resources. This button adjusts the volume. Just don't push this one. I'm watching you. Be sure to find Applied Software on social media and on our website, asti.com, where we'll empower you to discover what's possible. You can also find a complete schedule of upcoming events, on-demand webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar. This is being recorded for your convenience. You'll be receiving an email with the recording link for future reference. And make sure to stick around. We'll answer questions at the end. See you there. All right, so as that video mentioned, you can find our schedule of upcoming events and webinars on our calendar, so make sure to check that out. I'm very pleased to introduce Mark Petrucci. Mark is not a director of services. He's a senior construction specialist at Applied Software with years of experience in the industry. Blake Douglas was not able to join us today and sends his regrets, so Mark will be taking care of the whole webinar this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mark. We do have a few poll questions before we begin, so with your permission, I'll go ahead and read those out. All right, so our first poll question here is, what is your industry or role? Are you an estimator, subcontractor, general contractor, designer/engineer, or are you in fabrication? I'll read that again. What is your industry or role? Are you an estimator, subcontractor, general contractor, designer/engineer, or are you in fabrication? Mark, what do you expect that most people will say today?
I'm going to assume that most people coming in here are either a contractor or estimator.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we have just about everybody responding. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll go to the next poll question. All right, next up is, what type of quantity takeoffs do you do? 2D, 3D, both 2D and 3D, or I don't do quantity takeoffs. I'll read that again. What type of quantity takeoffs do you do? 2D, 3D, both 2D and 3D, or I don't do quantity takeoffs. Again, Mark, what do you expect most people to say?
If I had to guess, I'm going to say probably 2D takeoffs are pretty common.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Hopefully they're doing both, but 2D been around for a long time.
Right. All right, and then we have our next poll question. Looks like everybody submitted their responses. Thank you. Our next question is, what software do you use for quantity takeoff? Autodesk Takeoff, Navisworks, modeling software like Revit or AutoCAD, Bluebeam, other, or currently no software. Again, that is Autodesk Takeoff, Navisworks, modeling software like Revit or AutoCAD, Bluebeam, other, or currently no software.
Lots of different choices there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Although that one, I think we could have made that one a multiple choice one as well.
Yeah, we probably could have. Cool. All right, that looks like everybody submitted their responses. Thank you, everyone. And I'll push it to you, Mark, for the presentation.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, I'll let you know when I can see it.
All right, thank you. And we're going to go to screen number 1.
All right, you're good.
And great. And you see the title screen?
Yes, I do.
Great. All right. All right, everyone. Again, my name is Mark Petrucci, and I'm going to do a webinar today on using Takeoff to get our quantities, because with those quantities, then we can start associating them with costs and estimating. So we'll go through a quick review of Autodesk Takeoff. I'll go through project setup. I'll show you the viewer. I'll do a live demonstration. I don't like to do everything in PowerPoint, but some things are quicker with just some screenshots, so I put those in PowerPoint. And then we'll take a look at the inventory and the type of reports that we can produce. And finally, we'll end up with any questions and answers. So real quick, what we're doing today is what I'm going to show you is related to takeoff. And you'll hear different terms like material takeoff, quantity takeoff. And basically, we're just counting objects that will be used during construction of our building. Estimating is the process where we associate a cost to those objects or to those materials. But it's important that we also associate costs associated with labor and any equipment. So there's many factors involved in estimating, but we do need to start out with our drawings and our models to start generating our estimates. So who uses Takeoff? Like I said, estimators and contractors. Could be subs, could be general contractors. Designers who are typically using modeling software like Revit or Fabrication, Evolve, they can get a lot of takeoffs directly from their software. But estimators and contractors don't know how to use, Evolve, for example, or possibly Revit. So Takeoff is a good way for customers to take advantage of these very BIM information-rich models and being able to get quantities from them. And so forever we've done takeoffs using paper, where we just highlight things in color. We've done 2D takeoffs with PDFs. We asked a question earlier about, what software have you used in the past, if any. Very common PDFs were used, and electronically you can use different colors and symbols to highlight what's been counted. On the 3D side, you're able to count objects as well. But again, I put a note in here, estimators don't know Revit. So if you don't know Revit, it's hard to get the estimates or the quantifications out of Revit. And that's where Takeoff comes in. And then we could count things like individual objects. We can do lengths, area, and volume. Real quick, the product we're going to talk about today is Autodesk Takeoff. But Takeoff is part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, which is made up of 4 primary products. Everything starts with docs. That's what's going to house your documents. From there, we can do any sort of design collaboration, model coordination using BIM Collaborate. We'll focus on Takeoff today, and I'll show you both 2D and 3D takeoffs. And then there is Build, which is used on the construction side for managing our project. So let's first look at setting up Takeoff, and it's pretty easy. You just need to be invited to a project. You'll log into acc.autodesk.com. Let me take a step back. You need to be an administrator for a project. If it's not already set up, then as an administrator, you can set up a project, or if you're invited to it, you can simply log in. But a project does need to be created, and once selected, team members need to be invited to the project. We then need to configure some settings we need to do before we start using Takeoff. And then from there, I can do takeoffs on either 2D sheets or 3D models. And then we create packages to organize what we're counting. Bid packages you can think of as packages you can think of like as bid packages or scopes of work. And then we'll perform our quantity takeoff, and finally we'll finish with exporting what we've quantified so that we can use that in estimating. So real quick, just log into acc.autodesk.com. You'll use your normal Autodesk email address and password to log in. Once you get there, you get access to all the projects that you've been invited to in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. From there, the project list, real quick, it's always important to talk about, and I would encourage everyone, no matter which Autodesk program you use, get comfortable with the help. There's some good information out there on the website. I was looking at it just earlier this week just to see if anything had changed as far as help, and discovered that there was a new feature I wasn't aware of. So really good idea to review the help for any of the Autodesk programs. Down here I was able to access my projects, and once I access the project, I am going to show you first what it looks like using docs before we get to Takeoff. So here's a project that I'm accessing, and this is the one that I'll show in my live demo. And I'm going to use the TSU Tech Ed building. And what we're looking at first here is Autodesk Docs. And you'll notice my project name up here in the corner. Next to it, I'm in the Docs module. And from here, when I select on Files, I will review the project files or the project folders that are associated with this project. For those of you coming from BIM 360, the project files is exactly the same as it was in BIM 360 Docs. Exact same way here in Autodesk Docs. So no difference there. But now what I'm going to show you is the relationship between Autodesk Docs with Autodesk Takeoff. So again, I'm looking back at my project, and I see that I'm in Docs. And I'll come up here and I'll switch from Docs to Takeoff. This does have to be turned on and activated for people to be able to see it. And so once you see Takeoff, you can select on it, and then it opens up a new interface specifically for Autodesk Takeoff. You'll notice I've got my help button up here. Again, I encourage you to review that. You'll notice over here I have a menu specifically for Takeoff. It's a little different than what we saw for Docs, so we'll go through a few of the features here. But the very first time you set up Takeoff, you will get to this first page here called Getting Started, which basically takes you through steps for setting up Takeoff. So we first start out with setting up a classification system and units of measure. We then upload or publish 2D sheets and 3D models. And finally, we create packages to do our takeoffs. And so we'll go through those steps, and I'll show that quickly here, and then we'll review those within the live session. So first thing, we'll start out with defining a classification system. When I do that, it takes me to a new screen, and from here I'm going into settings. Then I pick which units of measure I want to work with, and typically here in the US we work with Imperial. And then from here I can upload a particular classification system. Now, I can upload the classification system, and you'll notice over here it opens up, gives me the opportunity right here to import. And if I don't have a classification system already set up, I can download a template to fill it in, if you will. But what I've gone ahead and done, I've uploaded the Uniformat classification system, and I've uploaded the Master Format classification system. So I can actually have two different classification systems within the same Takeoff project. And when you hit the blue button, you get a little preview of the coding system that is used within that classification system. By the way, you can always re-import and update the classification system as needed. However, once you start quantifying objects, you won't be able to go back and make changes. So it's important that we review this and make sure that we have everything we need as far as our coding system. This is an example of 3 different classification systems. I usually provide an Excel document with each one. The Excel file that I have covers the majority of the Uniformat, Master Format, and Omniclass classification system. It's not everything, but it's the stuff that I typically use, and I'm happy to share that with you for training purposes if needed. Finally, once we get back to our classification system, I'm going to hit the home screen, and you'll notice that we got a nice big green check mark, very clearly defined that we finished with the classification system. Next step here is we need files in which we need to do takeoffs on. So when I click on that, it immediately takes me over to Sheets and Models folder. Now, Sheets and Models is specific to Takeoff. This module right here does not appear anywhere else except with Takeoff. So I do need to upload 2D sheets and 3D models. Now, to get to sheets and models, I have a couple options. I could either upload files, or I can grab them from my Autodesk Docs folder. And so I'll show you how that is done. Now, there are two separate sections here for 2D sheets and 3D models. And I do want to emphasize, and it's real important, and in the help screen, it tells you this specifically. As far as 2D sheets, that is specifically reserved for PDF documents. For 3D models, I can upload a Revit model. So right now, I can use either of those formats to get my quantities. And in addition, I could use both. Now, Caitlin, if you let me know, if you hear the background noise of the leaf blower, let me know, and I'll switch to a headset.
Okay, I will.
All right, thanks. So we could upload files, but like I said, instead of uploading files, I'm going to grab the files that are already uploaded to Autodesk Docs. So I'm going to switch over to Files. When I click on Files here, I want you to notice this is Autodesk Docs. Even though it says Takeoff up here in the corner, these are the same folders that I had in Docs. And from here I can go to the architectural folder and I could select the Revit model and bring that in. Or I can select the PDF document and bring that in. And this is just a quick screenshot to show you Autodesk Docs and the File section. And we can see my project files, which is the exact same thing we see under Takeoff files, the exact same folders. So that's what Autodesk refers to as their common data environment. Switching back over to the file section, you'll notice that when I select on a document, I do have the option to publish this. And it says publish specifically to Takeoff sheets and models. So it knows if I select a Revit model or a PDF document, it will then push that over into the correct area of Takeoff. Now the next few slides here, I'm going to run through fairly quickly because it's a lot of information, but I want to make sure I kind of get to the end where I can show you the final output from Takeoff. But I did want to at least mention this. When you publish a PDF document into Autodesk Takeoff, you will be prompted to enter in some information. In this case here, we could specify a set name with a specific date associated with that. When I move on, it does tell me, it says, hey, if you've got any markups in your PDF document, they're not going to show up. That's fine. We're not going to worry about that. But what it does is it will look through all of my sheets and it will automatically OCR it and find the sheet number. Now, I purposely changed this number to be the same as the first one, so it brings up this error message, and so I did that on purpose. It will do OCR, optical character recognition. It'll look for all the sheet numbers, and then it'll fill it in. If it's wrong, you can quickly find it, and I'm going to skip over the rest of this up here. I normally do this during my build training. But you notice right over here you have the option to eliminate all the other sheets except for the ones with errors. So it makes it easy to find them and fix them. In this case, I only loaded 13 sheets, but imagine if I had 113 sheets and I had some errors in different locations. This is a quick way of filtering and finding those sheets that need to be corrected. By the way, I could also control the height of each row. And finally, I'm just going to move on. After I correct the number, I'm going to move on to the next step. I did want to show you one other thing here that I had the option to do. This is a PDF document. And in that PDF document, the first 2 pages is nothing more than a picture of a 3D model. I can't do anything with that for quantification, so I do have the option to put a check in there and remove those sheets. Now I can go ahead and move on to my titles and make sure that the titles, actually one more step here, a little tip I put in here. You will notice that it tells me that I can proceed on, but you may want to spot check your sheet numbers because notice it did place the date instead of a sheet number, and so it recognized that as being correct as far as being a number, but it's not the correct sheet number. So it's important that we just kind of quickly verify the data that is there. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed on. And what we're looking at here is this is the ability where I can tell it where to find the sheet number so it knows the correct location to look for it. So I'm going to proceed on because I'll go through that a little bit slower for our project titles. And when I complete this, it does recognize the sheet number, and so now I can proceed on to titles. Now, while it does a great job of finding the sheet numbers and labeling that here in these columns, the sheet titles, we have to tell it specifically where to find the sheet titles. So one of the first things I would do here is looking for sheet titles is maybe adjust the row height so I can see more rows. I can select all the files in which I want to look for the title. From there, once I select them, I could hit this box that says Draw Sheet Title Area. When I do that, it now wants me, it brings up a sheet, one of the sheets, and it's asking me to specify an area where to look for the title. Now, if you notice right up here, it says, it tells you, and there's some little tips in here that are really easy to miss, but it tells you right here to draw an area to extract the sheet title from all of the 13 sheets that I have selected. Now, I'm on sheet number 1, but I could be on any sheet. All 3 of them will look in the same general area. And what I do is I just simply select this button right over here. I pick 2 corners, and it'll find the sheet title. And when I proceed on, I'll hit Save, and then we'll see on the next screen that it's recognized the sheet titles. And then I'll hit Publish Sheets. So when you publish PDF documents into Takeoff, there's a little bit of work that we have to do. It really doesn't take very long, but once it finishes, then we'll end up seeing the 2D sheets appear. The 3D models go a little bit quicker. With the 3D models, again, I can go back over to Files. I can select multiple Revit models, and when I hit Publish, it will automatically publish those 2 Revit models. There's no other work I need to do. Again, the Revit models have information, they have intelligence about them, whereas the PDF document has no information. We say, you know, it's kind of a dumbed down PDF where all I have is the sheet number and the sheet name and what's written on there. But if I touch on an object, there's no properties associated with that object. A line with an arc is just a line with an arc in a PDF, but in a Revit model, that line with an arc could be a door. So now that I've set up my documents, now I create a package. And when I select the packages, it'll take me over to the package section, and I can create a package. And you want your packages to be pretty focused on what you're going to quantify. So in this case here, if I want to generate some work packages based for flooring and for walls, then I can create packages for each. Now, remember those sheets and models that we uploaded. All of those will be available for each package. It's just I can decide on what I'm going to quantify within each package. So now I can begin Takeoff. Now I wanted to bring up this screen, and I'll show this to you live, but I wanted to at least show you the different sections just to kind of get you to focus. When you first enter the Takeoff viewer, at the very top it tells you which package you're in. So very easily you can switch between different packages. Finally, what we see here is 2 different icons. The first icon will show you all the sheets and the models that are available in Takeoff, and they're all listed right down here. If I click on the next icon below that, that is my Takeoff types. What am I going to count? So we can, when you first create this, and I'll show you and I'll demonstrate this, when we first create a project, there are no Takeoff types. So it's a great idea to import Takeoff types from another project or from a template file, and I'll demonstrate that. Finally, I only have 15 sheets in here, 15 sheets and models, There is a search option, so if you want to look for specific files, you simply type in the name. You also have a filter that I can say, only show me my sheets or only show me my models. A really helpful one is this Takeoff. If you start Takeoff on some sheets and or models, and then you want to come back and continue to work, you don't need to see the entire list. So filter this list down to only those documents that have Takeoff already. Real quick here on my list of sheets and models, you'll see these different icons. When you see the little cube, that lets you know that that's a 3D model. When you see this, it looks like a piece of paper. That's just a 2D sheet. So these are my PDFs, and up top here is my 3D models. And then if I select, excuse me, if I select on any of these sheets or models, I'll see them viewed right over here. All right. Great. So now let's jump over into Takeoff. All right. So here I'm in this is my current project. Notice I'm here in Docs. Here's my files. Here's my folders under Project Files. I'll switch over to Takeoff. And I guess I need to stop that. There we go. All right, so I'll switch over to Takeoff. Now I've already gone through and I've set up the classification system. I'll click on it and you'll notice it's set up for Imperial. And here's my uniformat classification system. And then here is my master format classification system. Switching back over to Home. Whoops, and looks like I just kicked myself right out of that project here. So I'll go back in here to the project. And switching back over to Home, now I can view the 2D sheets and 3D model. If I come over here to Files, oops, my bad. I meant Sheets and Models. Here's my list of 2D sheets, and here are the 3D models that I have available to me inside of Takeoff. And again, the way I got to these, I went over to Files, I went to a particular folder, I selected that file, and I said Publish it. And so that's where we've gotten our sheets and our models. And going back to my Home tab, finally, then we're going to look at packages. Now, I'll click on Packages, and I'll see a list of them. But I do want to scroll down a little bit and show you. I have the option to dismiss this screen. I don't need to see this anymore because I've finished all this. When you do that, then notice right down here, you can see a list of my recent sheets and models and recent Takeoff packages. So it's a great way for you to kind of go back and look at, the history of what you've done. And so it makes it very easy for you to get back or continue with any work that you were doing yesterday. You can quickly see what's up at the top. I'm going to switch manually over to Packages. And I do have 6 packages in here. Now you'll notice the 6 packages, I simply call them Architecture, Electrical, Mechanical, Piping, and Structural. But I'll create a package here on the fly, and maybe I call this one Flooring. I'll hit Create Package. So there's my flooring package. When I click on it, immediately it's showing me right up here the name of the package that I'm in, and I can switch between any of them. I can see my sheets and models. If I scroll down, you can see I have a long list. One thing I didn't mention, if you work on particular sheets a lot, like maybe my floor plan view, if you check off this bookmark, it'll place it right at the top. So it makes it really easy to get specific files by placing a bookmark. If I come over here to Takeoff type, notice I have no Takeoff types. So this is flooring. If I want to start quantifying, the different types of flooring in my building, I then have to go in here and I have to create different Takeoff types. So maybe if I'm going to quantify carpet, and then it's all right, I'm going to do an area Takeoff, and I'm going to assign a specific color and a specific color for the border. And then I have to go ahead and I have to add in some details, like where's the classification system in here. And if I come in here and I type in carpet, Now I don't, oops, type in carpet. Notice carpet doesn't show up here. So now I have to come back in here and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do interior and this must have something to do with finishes, which makes sense. And there's my flooring. All right, well, what about classification too? If I come in to here and I type in carpet, notice it's now scrolls down and I can find specific to carpeting, and I'll just select that one. So the classification systems, once you're familiar with it, you know what to search for. And so I went ahead and I just created assigned those two different classification systems. And then I can say, all right, how am I going to count my carpeting? I'm not going to count them individually. I'm going to do a area takeoff or square footage. And from there, I can save this. And now notice I have a takeoff type called carpeting. Now, I'm just going to change this real quick here, and I'll put in here webinar. And I'll go ahead and save that. Because you saw that it took me a couple minutes to do. Well, once you do that, you may want to reuse the same ones over and over again. And this is where this button comes in, where you can import takeoff types. Now, you can import takeoffs. There is technically no template file for a takeoff. However, you can create a project and just name it takeoff. And that's where you can store all of your takeoffs. Now, notice I created one here. I call it takeoff template. And I did this one for education buildings. And when I come in here, I can see different packages that are available. And I have a package here for architectural. When I click on this, notice I have all these architectural components in which I can start doing takeoffs. And here I might want to import my tile and my VCT. And I'll scroll up and I've got some carpeting in here as well. And I think I've got some hardwood in here as well. Yeah, hardwood flooring. And so I've actually imported this from a different project. So it makes it really easy when you need to grab takeoff types from another project. So I would just create a blank project and I would preset all of my takeoff types. And that's what I did with that project we were just looking at. Now I just have to select the file that I want to do takeoffs on. So if I come over here and I'm going to select just my first floor, and I'll just zoom in real quick to this area. I'll switch back over to my takeoffs, and I'm going to assume that the majority of this area here has been replaced with carpeting. So I can come over here and I'll select my carpet takeoff. And now right down here, and actually let me move this over to here. Make sure I start my area routine, and with carpet selected, I can come up here and I could select this entire area, and that's going to be carpeting. Now, I'm not going to put carpeting in the men's room, and maybe not in my workroom, or maybe in some of my offices. So I'll come down here and I'll switch over to tile, and I'll do the exact same thing, and I'll specify an area where to place my tile. Now, when I did that, it didn't change my carpeting. So a nice little feature here, I can select on that tile, and I come right down here and I could say cut out. And when I do that now, if I take this, it's actually cut out. Oops, it's actually cut out that section of area. So maybe in my workroom, I'll put in VCT, and I'll just do this. And again, I'll do a quick cutout for my VCT. Oops. Escape there, still in there. So very quickly, you can see I'm quantifying now how much VCT I have tile in my carpet. And finally, I'll just finish this up with hardwood. And I'll just say that in this corner office, we're going to put hardwood. And because I put hardwood in there, I'm going to go ahead and expand that a little bit more. And then I'll just say, cut that out. And actually, it looks like we found a little bug there. So I'll have to come back there and add my carpet, but apparently I may have actually what I think I did was I accidentally selected the carpet. Let me just demonstrate that real quick here, guys. It's actually a good thing to point out. When you select on an object, make sure you don't select the wrong object. I had actually selected I'd actually accidentally selected the carpet. So now when I come in here and I select on this hardwood, I can go ahead and remove that. I can click on the workroom and I can remove that. And one other thing I can do, I had a little tough time selecting, if they're overlapping. You can come over here and I could turn off this carpeting here. I'll turn that off. Now I come in here and I can actually select on that tile, or I also have the option, if I need to select on it, I don't know why, but my mouse is stuck here. I also have the option where I can actually select on the tile this way. And sorry, my mouse is actually stuck, so I apologize for that. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off real quick. I'm going to select that, turn that back on, and then I'll go ahead and cut that out. And actually, it's not letting me, so I will do one other thing here, just to make this a little bit easier on myself. And the beauty of live demos. So we'll go ahead and do this. And I should be able to cut that out now. Boom, there we go. And I'll pull that back down. So, all right, so real quick, that's, I can do my 2D takeoffs. I showed you how to do, this is specifically for flooring. What I want to do is I want to switch to a package where I have a lot of information and then show you what we can do with it. So I'm actually going to exit out of my flooring package, and I'm simply going to go into this package. Now, I purposely created this package to show everything that I've quantified. I've quantified structural, I've quantified architectural, I've quantified some mechanical. What I wanted to show you here is if I scroll down, you see a list of all of the different objects that I have quantified. And I have all these different takeoff types. I have a total of 56. And what I think I will do here is I'm going to select on here real quick. If you notice, when I expand on this B shell, notice it's only showing me 2D takeoff types because I have a 2D document. Watch when I switch over to a 3D model. And now I switch to takeoff types. Now it's showing me actually all my takeoff types related to a 3D model. There we go. And so if we scroll down and we look, we can see everything has this symbol next to it that represents that's a BIM takeoff. So notice I've got a lot more information here, got a lot of stuff dealing with the interiors. I do have some structural in here on purpose, again, just to create a lot of different objects. Because I want you to understand with our BIM files, there's a lot of data. And so we should get comfortable with using different filters that might be available. And so I come in here and I say, you know what? I don't care about anything dealing with the shell. All I want to see is the interiors. Now, if I just compress this really quick, I've got those three. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to filter it. Say, just show me interiors. And so immediately that's what I'm left with. So now I have takeoff types. I can start quantifying these particular objects. Now, if we take a look, I've already quantified some things like some ceilings and some walls. You can see as I scroll down the different objects that I've quantified. I'm going to switch over to this cluster view, which is really helpful. And as I scroll down and take a look, and I'm going to focus on ceilings right now, I can see just by the colors, because anything that's a dark gray hasn't been quantified. But it looks like I've counted a bunch of ceilings. Well, a really nice handy tool here is I'm going to come right over here where it says interiors, and I'm going to turn off anything that's already been counted. And when I do that, notice I just have a few ceilings left. So I know I have not counted this ceiling. Well, we saw when I was doing a takeoff in 2D that I did an area takeoff. Well, if I select on this, I now can come up here and I can say, all right, let's start counting this ceiling. And if I right click on it, it tells me that's a 2x4 acoustical ceiling tile system. I want to select all of them. And notice it highlighted all of those that we see that are left. All right, great. Let's count it. Right up here, I'm going to hit the plus sign, and it automatically knows to name it. It says, hey, this is what it's called in Revit. I'm going to call it here in Takeoff. But then notice it tells me right below there, it says, hey, there's already a type in here with the same name. So I know what to go look for. I don't have to create a new one. I don't have to come in here and look for, the classification systems. I don't have to fill out the unit of measure. I just will go and look for this one, and I'll use that as my takeoff type. So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to hit cancel. And right here is that takeoff type. So that's the 2x4. And I'm going to hit check. And now we'll see that it's disappeared. Let's turn that back on so we can see it. Notice it's changed colors. And it tells me right down here when I select on it just how many square feet of 2x4 acoustical ceiling tile I have. And if I expand on this, I can see what's already been filled out. There's the name, there's the color. Come back in here. Here's the classification systems. It's already been set to area. So it's already done the calculations for me. So the first time you will have to spend a little time configuring your different takeoff types, assigning them classification systems, assigning them units of measure. Once you do that, then you can use them over and over again, and getting your quantities can be pretty quick. Now I'm going to switch to a 2D floor plan because I started out with the 2D takeoff and I forgot to follow up with the 3D take. I went to 3D and then I want to go back to 2D just to show you a couple things here. This is the same floor plan we saw before, just to show you how quickly I can start doing my takeoffs. So now what I can do is I'm like, all right, these walls right here, I'm going to say that these are all, metal stud both sides. And now I just simply start counting. Come over here and I'll just click. And I'll just continue around like this. And just continue here, and I'll just put in a few more here. So that quickly, it's already there. It's already telling me how many linear feet I have. If I want to start counting my interior doors, I'll simply just come over here, select interior door, and I can start counting those. And again, if you have different interior doors, metal, wood, security, whatever, just create a different takeoff type. And all you have to do is select it from the menu and you can continue on. Notice I can scroll down here and I can say, all right, let me go ahead and select my tile flooring. And I'll come in here and I'll just go ahead and select where I want. Oops, I'm going to come over to here. Like this. And I've selected my tile flooring. So very easy to go ahead and select those different takeoff types. And this is all I'm doing this with just 2D takeoffs. If you want to change the symbol of any of your takeoffs, notice I've got right up here, I got this double door, then my single door. They have a different symbol associated with them. So if I click on this single door, then I'll come over here and I'll say, you know what, let's change it from a square to a circle, and we'll make that color red, and we'll make this outside a light blue. I'll hit save, and then you can see all my doors have been updated. So real quick, I'm quantifying on the fly. I can do that in 2D. I can do that in 3D. One more thing I want to show you dealing with formulas. I'm going to switch to a structural file. Here's my structural model. Again, the quick and easy way to work on this is to go ahead and cluster this. If I zoom in, I can see that I've got some objects that are in color, some that are not. So I'm going to take a look at my takeoff types here, and I'm going to switch this to just show me my shell. And if I take a look, I can see I've got different systems in here. And what I think I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll set this to go to levels 1, 2, and 3. Because notice now I have under my exterior vertical enclosures, B20, I've got a section 2010. Well, I'm not going to do anything with walls, so I'm going to compress that. But as I scroll down, I will actually scroll up. There's my superstructure right there. Those are my my columns and my beams. Well, notice I've already counted some. Well, let me go ahead and just turn off everything and see what's left. I'll turn them all back on. So here I can quickly visualize what's been counted and what hasn't. So maybe I'll start out right here. I will select this bar joist, and I'll zoom in, I'll click on it. Come back up here to start counting it. It's a 14K1. It says, wait a minute, you've already got one in here. All right. If I scroll down and I'll look for my 14K1, and I've got it right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on so I can see it. But I'll tap on this, and I'll right click, and I'll say, all right, let's select all of them. And now I can come over here, and with this selected, I've got 167. I will count it, and now I've got a total of 167 of them. But notice right now it's trying to calculate the weight, and it's unable to calculate the weight. And if I come in here, you take a look, it's determining the weight based on the length of each bar joist and also the weight of each bar joist. Now, with some systems, the weight's already included. So if I actually click on this button right here, this will show me, once I select on an object, boom, this will show me the different properties that are available. And when I hit View More, you'll notice if I scroll down, weight is not included in that bar joist, right? Oh, actually there is, right there. There's WT. W is not included, but the WT is. So all I have to do is I select on over here and I change this to WT. I'll pick on it and I'll hit save. And now notice when I hover over this, it calculates the tonnage for me. Now, one last thing to show you, if you wanted to, you also have the option, you can enter in a number in here. And I was going to type in the number 5, and it would still calculate the tonnage. So you can actually, if the parameter is there, you want to tie it to the parameter. If it's not, you can enter in a specific number. All right. I've been in here and I've been counting objects. I just want to show you what the report looks like. So if you come right down here in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see it says inventory. And normally I take this and I pull this to another screen, but because we just don't, I'm unable to do that with the webinar, I'm going to maximize this here, and we'll see everything. So real quick, your inventory can be set up or organized 5 or 6 different ways here. By classification 1, there's my B, C, and D groups. Go to classification number 2, and I'll go ahead and you can scroll down. You can see the different items that have been counted. I can actually filter this by the document. And if you look at this, these are my 2D sheets, A103 and 104, and we can see what I quantified on those individual sheets. Then I come down to my Revit model, and I can see what I've quantified in the 3D. So I could actually do takeoffs on both 2D and 3D and able to get that information, you know, in a single report. Now with any of this stuff, if you click on an item, you have an option to go ahead and expand on it and see some details. And I'm going to jump back up to classification 1 to do that. And let's take a look here. And actually my mouse is not clicking right now on there for some reason. Let's take a look at the other takeoff types. Yeah, I'm trying to compress that, but the mouse is locking up. So we can organize this by all the different takeoff types. There's no, it's not organized by anything else except by the takeoff type. Excuse me. And finally, the last one here is location. None of these objects have been assigned a location, but if I wanted to go back into any of these, and when I right-click on it, you'll see an option that says Assign Location. So you may want to use locations like per floor or per certain areas of a building, which if you want the ability to sort your report by location, you can assign a location that way. Now, as far as, yeah, this is just not, there we go. So Looks like I had to close it up. Here's what I was trying to show you before. Here's this bar joist that I selected. And I think I have to restart my computer because we were just looking at a list there and it's just taking a while. That one more time. All right, there we go. So there's my 14K1 bar joist, and I can see each individual bar joist. So you can itemize each one, and I can tell just by the length that and the weight how they're adjusting accordingly. Now, by the way, I can actually select on them here, and I'm actually trying to click with my mouse, but it's not working. But I can actually, when I select on it here in the inventory, it actually selects it back in the model. So it's really helpful when you have a split screen. You've got your inventory list on one screen. You've got your model on the middle screen. If you need to select specific objects, you can come in here and select them from your inventory. Now, I will then go in here and export. And I'm glad I downloaded these earlier. And these are the Excel files which I've downloaded. Now, when you download it, it won't name them accordingly. It just will name it Excel download. But I named these on purpose. So if I select on classification 1, we can see what this looks like. And what I want you to notice here is here's the groupings or the coding, and I can expand on them. So it does a really nice job in that on the first tab, it will break these up and according to the code system. But if you go over to details architecture, it'll list each one individually. And this could be really helpful if you want to link this to an estimating program. From here, then you have a little bit more control on the data and how it gets in there. But as I scroll across here, the columns are preset. Okay, there's 11 columns here in here total, and from Takeoff, you don't turn columns on and off in Excel. When you do an export, it's going to export all the columns regardless. But once you get into Excel, it's fairly easy to go ahead and hide columns and work on them. The only thing that is different is when you set up a different report, the report gets created based on which report. The Excel file gets created based on which report you've selected. So you'll notice when I open up my documents report, right up here is the sheets and my Revit model. And if I expand on it, I could review everything I've quantified in Revit. I could review everything I've quantified on sheet A104 and everything I've quantified on sheet A103. But again, I can come down here and I can look at a detail where nothing is grouped. Everything is just listed out for you or itemized individually. Okay. Sorry, I had to rush through that real quick. I had a few technical mouse problems with my computer, but are there any questions?
Yes, there are. I'll go ahead and go over to the questions slide. So first, it looks like we have a question from James who asks, can Takeoff link to an estimating program?
Okay, currently right now it cannot. So we have to export to Excel, and that Excel file then we would either link or import into an estimating program.
Okay. And next we have one from Levi who asks, will Autodesk add estimating capabilities to Takeoff?
That's a good question. I don't know what the real answer is to that. I think what Autodesk has done in the past will kind of still be laser focused around quantification, but I think that is the intent. I think what will end up happening is they'll probably, with the third-party program, figure out a way to link that in so that maybe while Takeoff is not doing the estimating, but there will be a live link with an estimating program.
Okay. Next, Sylvia asks, how can I take off an AutoCAD file?
Okay, so with your AutoCAD file, you will have to export out to a PDF file and then take that PDF and do a 2D takeoff on the AutoCAD file. If your AutoCAD is in 3D, like Fabrication CAD MEP, you can get takeoffs directly out of there. But the quick answer is take the CAD file, save it as a PDF, and then you can import it into Takeoff.
Perfect. And then we had one last question from James, who asks, how does this compare with Autodesk Assemble?
Okay, great question. So I'm a big Assemble fan. So a couple little differences between Assemble and Takeoff. Takeoff does not allow me to add additional information like Assemble does. With Assemble, I can create Assemble properties, and then I can add information to those properties. So I typically demonstrate how to create a bid package property, and then we take that Revit model and we break it up into different bid packages. You also have the ability to associate cost information with Assemble. So while I was not able to access or associate any cost numbers here inside of Takeoff, with Assemble I can do that. Assemble, I can also link that to an Excel file that I open up Excel, and it will pull down the information into my Excel file. So I don't have to go into Assemble and generate a report. I could actually use this Excel to pull the data into my Excel report. So it's a little bit more flexible that way. However, something it doesn't do is 2D takeoffs. It is designed to work with our 3D model, and so trying to do it, we don't do 2D takeoffs with Assemble systems. I can't bring a PDF document into Assemble and do a takeoff. My only option for that is to use Autodesk Takeoff. And just so you know, I'm working on getting a demo prepared or another webinar specifically around using Assemble, and we'll focus on Assemble, and hopefully you'll see some of the differences there.
Oh, cool. It looks like that was the last of the questions. So if you're okay with it, I'll go ahead and wrap things up.
Great. All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Yeah, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Excuse me. We appreciate you spending your time with us, and we trust that it was meaningful and impactful for you and your business. We look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thanks, Mark, and thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.